All right, this is the podcast.
What's up, Matt?
How's it going, Jim?
It's going.
So this is our podcast. This is our first time attempting a podcast.
First time ever.
It's early 2013. Actually, it's February.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
For the podcast.
It's February, and that means that next month is one of my favorite months in the gaming industry. It's the end of the fiscal year.
End of the fiscal year.
It's
Gotta hit
March.
those numbers.
It's March Madness.
March Madness.
How many franchises are we looking at this March?
Probably close to a dozen. Probably close to a dozen big franchises are trying to make their buck.
Heavy hitters, and I mean, obviously, well, actually, I don't know if it's obvious. So November makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of great games come out in November.
Yeah, October,
There's
November
a
is
lot
big.
of money on the table there because you got Black Friday, you got Christmas, the holiday season, Christmas break. People want to play games. I get why there's competition there. Why are people so crazy releasing a dozen major franchises in March? And this isn't the first year.
Yeah, well, it's the fiscal year, and those don't usually change. So you got EA and Take-Two, all those guys, Activision. I think a lot of them have the fiscal year hitting at that end of March. And in the box product space, you make a lot of that money in the first week that you release. So if you launch it by March 23rd, say, you get all that money in the fiscal year and you hit your investor numbers. So everyone kind of bumps up against that date as some of these games got delayed, like Tomb Raider and Bioshock. And we'll talk about some of those. But it's a lot of games, not enough time.
So they say competition is like good for the market. Is this level of competition, is this good for gamers or is this a bad thing for gamers?
I don't think it's good for gamers. I've never been a big fan of a lot of big games releasing on top of each other because there comes a point where your time is more valuable and precious than your money. Like you might be able to afford 3 or 4 of these games, but if they're each 20-hour experiences, you just don't have time to enjoy them. So in my opinion, that's kind of bad for the gamer because they may want to play a lot of these games rated maybe 80 to 95, but they just don't have the time, so they have to let some fall off the back of the truck, and they never get to have that experience.
Now, the counter argument is a lot of these are going to be on the summer Steam sale. So, you know, we're going to have our number 1 and our number 2 pick that we pay $60 for, that we're really excited about, that we spend lots of hours playing. But then our number 3, 4, and 5 pick, which we really wish we had gotten to, we're going to be able to pick those up for $30.
Yeah, so, I mean, you might be able to get a good deal on later. I mean, for me, the fun I have with games is when me and a lot of my friends are playing them at the same time on that release date, kind of as the reviews are coming in. You're talking about it at the water cooler, and you're debating at lunch over what's good and bad. And if you start playing those games, 3 or 4 months afterwards, I feel like you're kind of missing out on the community aspect, especially if it's like a single-player game. So, I don't know. I miss it when not everyone's kind of playing the big game at the same time. I really like those moments.
Yeah. Well, we talked about March Madness, and I actually have a little prop here today.
Oh, nice.
We put together our bracket. This is our March Madness bracket. And we've got 8 franchise contenders that we're looking at here. And when I read off these franchises, I mean, I'm not talking about one-off games here. There are at least 30 games releasing in March. But the 8 that we're talking about, these are franchises. These are games that sell 10 million units would not be unreasonable for some of these.
These are Game of the Year contenders. They're the games that won all the E3 accolades last year. I mean, these are big games.
So just to rattle them off here,
I want to play them all.
Some of the games that we're going to be looking at, we've got Bioshock
Infinite, huge.
Yeah, Gears of War Judgment, Gears of War franchise, God of War Ascension.
So you got your Xbox versus your PS3.
Yep, and both of these are the 4th game in a trilogy, which will be interesting. We've got the Gears of War trilogy.
I mean, it's been working for Halo, right?
Yeah, that's
Halo
true.
4 did really well.
So we'll see if these guys can... Actually, that's true. We'll see if these guys can live up to the Halo 4 expectations. We've got Tomb Raider reboot.
Yep.
StarCraft, Heart of the Swarm. Now that's technically an expansion, but when they put together an expansion, man, I mean, this is going to
do it right.
This is going to have a 30-hour campaign, I bet, and limitless competitive multiplayer. So it's up there and definitely a franchise. All right, Lost Planet 3, coming out on the heels of Dead Space 3.
Yeah, you got to get your ice planet on. You got snow. Who's got the best snow?
Also in the RTS space, Company of Heroes 2. Despite all the turmoil with THQ.
I am still looking really forward to that game. Company Heroes 1, still one of my favorite RTS games of the past 10 years. So I hope it comes through. I really want it to ship and play it.
And another great PC competitor is SimCity.
SimCity, it's a classic.
Another reboot. So I'm seeing a lot of reboots. I'm seeing a good amount of PC exclusives, a good amount of console exclusives of Gears of War and God of War.
Good amount of sequels.
A good amount of sequels, a good amount of multi-platform. I mean, there's a lot of spaces that are there are battlegrounds everywhere.
Yep.
It's like the presidential election. We've got the PC battleground, the Xbox versus PS3. We've got the multi-platform battleground.
And what's funny is that a lot of times, I remember the publishers would say, like, oh, well, that's a first-person shooter, and we're releasing an RTS. So because we're the only RTS that's coming out, of course we have a monopoly on the market. And it's like, no, people play multiple genres. Like, yeah, people will own a PC and an Xbox, or they'll own an Xbox and a PS3. So just because you have an exclusive on one of those doesn't mean that they're not your competition. Like, all these games are competing with each other for press time, for gamer time, for your money. So it's a busy season.
All right, so we've got this set up in a March Madness style bracket. So we're going to be pitting two against each other, and then we're going to have a winner. And you know how a bracket works. I don't need to explain this to you. But then the question is, do we do this by Metascore or do we do it by sales?
I think sales is going to be tough because you just don't really, and you never actually find out the real numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, people will do some bragging press outlets here and there, and then you got ones that are priced differently. PC games are sometimes a little bit cheaper than your console games.
StarCraft's probably going to be $40.
Yeah. So I think Metascore might be the best way to predict this. And we
plus
could actually,
some of these are platform limited.
Yeah, and we could do a kind of follow up and see how well we rank as the madness continues.
Okay, so my personal number one seed, Bioshock Infinite in this bracket, is paired off against Gears of War Judgment. So before we make our decision, let's take a minute and talk about Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah, so Bioshock 1 was one of my favorite games of the generation. And Bioshock 2, while good, to me almost felt like DLC. It didn't really...
You're back at Rapture.
You're back at Rapture, same weapons. They tried the multiplayer thing, didn't really work out that much.
No, it's okay. I'm totally okay with more of a good thing.
Yeah.
I loved the campaign in Bioshock 1. I loved it in Bioshock 2. I agree with you. The multiplayer was meh, but I thought that was totally acceptable.
So, but the formula's great. So the fact that they're now taking it to a completely new environment, obviously it's won a bunch of huge E3 preview awards. So I think this one's going to be pretty highly rated.
Yeah, let's take a look at the trailer here. I agree. There's a lot to look forward to in the Bioshock series, and it's a great team behind it that we know can execute against these grandiose ideas.
And it's been delayed actually a couple times, which to me means that they are putting kind of the polish and time into it, that they really want to hit this one big. If I were any of these other 7 games, I'd be a little bit nervous about gamer time and attention going to Bioshock.
Yep. And so we're anticipating that this is going to be a 90+ rated Metascore game, right?
I would be amazed if this is not a 90+ game. Critics love this stuff. Gamers love this stuff. And everything we've seen so far in the trailers has just been really incredible.
Yeah, beautiful environments. You're still using the plasmids combined with the guns. We've got this cool fast travel system through the air. I really love the Assassin's Creed 3, which was set in the American Revolution, and this is like colonial American time, which previously had been an unexplored theme, but I think there's a lot going on there. It's a cool opportunity. I don't know much about the story. Have they been keeping it under wraps?
A little bit. I mean, obviously, some of the characters that we've seen in the trailers, but they're known for these kind of twists that happen kind of near the end of the game. So I'm sure that'll kind of stay a secret until you play it. So you got to trust that it's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Definitely. Well, I've already got it on pre-order. So, all right, but that is running up against Gears of War Judgment.
So you can't say anything bad about Gears of War. I mean, it's been a great trilogy. I thought they wrapped it up really well. Gears of War 3.
It's funny to say that you play a game like Gears of War for the story. That's like an embarrassing thing to say. But in a way, there was like a little part of me that was like, yeah, I am playing Gears of War for the story.
It's that kind of attitude, right? It's not, it's not the really clever writing you're going to get in like an Aaron Sorkin film or something, but it's good, and it's just fun, and it's kind of escapism and entertainment.
Yep. And they're doing some cool stuff in this game. I mean, the multiplayer looks really solid with the horde mode and the weapons and stuff that they're introducing. So
but when you're thinking about kind of Metacritic, do we think that this is going to continue kind of their really highly rated, or do you think it's starting to show a little bit of its age in terms of the mechanics and the gameplay and the engine?
So I was very skeptical when Halo 4 came out for the same thing that I joked about in our intro, that it's the fourth in a trilogy.
Yeah.
And I'm similarly skeptical here. Now, Halo 4 blew me away. I thought Halo 4 was great. But the thing that Halo 4 did really well was they just sort of like blew off the fact that the story ended in Halo 3. Like, they didn't really spend any time talking about that. They're just like, oh no, Master Chief's still, he's fine.
He's just
what
back.
are you talking about?
He's here. He's just been hanging
and then
out.
they just told a cool Halo story. So if this tells a cool Gears story, then so be it. Of course, there's certain characters that you can't bring back.
So the big decision is, do we think that Gears of War will pull kind of a Halo and really surprise people and be a great addition to the series, or do we think that Bioshock is going to live up to kind of their expectation and take the crown?
Well, here's my thinking on it. I mean, Gears of War has the potential to be great, but it's a similar environment. It's a similar story. It's a game I've played before. It's going to be better. It's going to be great. It's going to be more of a new thing, more of a good thing. But Bioshock is taking me to a new environment, telling a new story. It's got that fast travel thing that looks really exciting where you like zip lining through the worlds. It's a floating city. I'm intrigued. I think there's more opportunity to not only deliver the great gameplay that I love, but also wow me with some new experiences in Bioshock. I'm not sure that I'm going to get that in the new Gears of War.
I think I have to give it to Bioshock as well. I mean, you could almost, sans the name, consider Bioshock a new IP.
Yep.
Just the new atmosphere. I'm sure that a lot of their weapons are going to be unique. The characters are going to be unique. And so
Bioshock
I agree.
gets it.
Living up to the expectation, Bioshock will get it.
All right. Well, sorry about that, Gears of War. But up next in our bracket, the lower bracket, we're going to be taking a look at Tomb Raider
and reboots.
God of War Ascension.
So, it's a very similar kind of debate, actually. So you got God of War, the fourth game in a trilogy, the other kind of platform-exclusive franchise, which has delivered every time. God of War 2 is probably my favorite PS2 game that ever came out. And God of War 3, I thought, met the expectation of kind of taking that to the new generation.
I loved God of War 3. The epic set pieces,
the bosses,
the characters, the boss fights. It was everything I loved about God of War 2 in beautiful high definition.
Yep.
It was the right story length and pacing. The combat was visceral and fun. And I've never been good at those action games. And I played it on normal and I tried some of the challenges, but it was still really fun. It made me feel like I was as awesome as a Devil May Cry or Ninja Gaiden player, but I didn't have to be that good.
And there were moments in the story in that one I felt that paid off as you kind of try and take out these gods. Now, a lot of that could have been that wow factor of the transition from kind of the PS2 days to the PS3 days. You've now kind of lost the opportunity for that delta. And so is, God of War 3 to now God of War Ascension, is that going to have the same impact as you saw from 2 to 3?
Let's take a look at some of the footage here. A great development team, though. And one of the new features that they're really harking on here is multiplayer.
I haven't read much about how it's going to work. I would never initially think multiplayer in kind of the God of War franchise. But like you said, it's a great team. I trust they know what they're doing.
Combat is excellent.
They wouldn't do it if they didn't think that there was potential for that to be a really cool addition.
Scorching the earth with lightning.
And not only is it an addition, it feels to me like they're marketing it as a pillar.
Well, I bet
I haven't heard very much about the story, and we all know how God of War 3 ends. There's not much of a story left to tell, so I'm interested.
You can always find new stuff behind the college.
Master Chief floating around, like broken husk of a spacecraft. They're like, oh, what's the big deal? No, it's fine.
So, I mean, this is one of those games where I think it will get some pretty high scores. I think it's going to kind of deliver on what you'd expect from a God of War game. But is it going to be kind of that game of the year contender, hot, mid 90s type experience? I'm not so sure. I think it might kind of be more into the high 80s, and kind of end up as a good game, one that people will want to play. But in terms of our bracket, I'm not sure it has the gusto to go all the way. But let's see what it's up against.
Yeah, it's up against Tomb Raider. This is a franchise reboot. I mean, we're taking a look at the new Lara Croft here. Doesn't look very much like the old Lara Croft.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a lot of different things with this, and very much, following on kind of the Uncharted model, which was obviously a great franchise. And so this is one of those titles where I think if they can hit kind of the hype that they've built for it, it could be kind of a critical darling.
Yeah.
Because it could just catch people kind of, flat-footed.
Now that Uncharted comment you made is really fascinating because in the early days of Uncharted 1, they cited Tomb Raider as an inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Tomb Raider came through in the Uncharted series. You're a treasure hunter. Mm-hmm. You are literally raiding tombs in the Uncharted games.
Yep, all the pistol shooting, all the...
the gunplay, it's all very similar.
Yep.
And now it's like the student has become the master. And the Tomb Raider guys are like, you know what? We could really level up our gameplay here. We could really take some of these... Uncharted added some secret sauce to our game. We could borrow some of that recipe and try and make an even better experience with the original IP.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's great for gamers. What Crystal Dynamics did with Guardian of Light, the XBLA game that came out a couple years ago, I thought was a great addition to kind of the Tomb Raider franchise and showed that these guys do care about the franchise. They're more about the gameplay and the atmosphere and kind of what it's like to be that treasure hunter, more so than just kind of the sexy female protagonist. Yep. And so I am really excited about this game. I've got this one on pre-order. This is going to be one of the ones that takes up my March Madness time, and I am crossing my fingers that it's going to be awesome.
Well, let's take a look at the gameplay here. I think you'll find it's very different than the Guardian of Light game. I agree that the Guardian of Light game was excellent, but this is much more Uncharted. And they're trying to tell an interesting story, the origin story. It's usually a good call, like Casino Royale.
I'm a big fan of origin stories. A lot of the movies have been doing them recently, and I think, like I said, if they can pull this off, they're going to create a franchise that will be really good this generation and go on to probably the next generation.
Yep. Well, we've seen this trailer, so let's take a minute and discuss our poll. So we've got Tomb Raider, which we're looking at right now. Beautiful graphics, a young Lara Croft adventuring, going back to our roots with some Uncharted mixed in. Or we've got God of War, exciting new competitive multiplayer in that space, telling another story, leveling up a team that we know and trust. I would argue that the God of War team maybe has a better reputation than the Crystal team lately, although the Crystal team is rebuilding. I think they've got a lot of bench strength now, and this game could be great. So, I don't know. This is a close one.
I'll put my vote out first. I gotta give it to Tomb Raider. I really think that this could come out and really surprise people to the quality that Crystal Dynamics can do. I think if they can keep their quality bar as high as they had in Guardian of Light and deliver the cinematic experience that Uncharted was delivering and some of the other action games of recent, I think this could get 90+, and I don't think God of War this time around is going to crest 90+. I think it'll be in that kind of high 80s realm, which is great.
Yeah, unless they really wow us with the story.
Yeah, and I think Tomb Raider has a better chance of delivering the kind of story and character and kind of draw that emotion out of players with kind of this origin story.
I'm already writing it down. I agree with you.
All right.
Tomb Raider gets it.
Not a lot of disagreements so far.
No, I mean, it's going to get really tight when it comes time to pick a winner. Okay, so we're going to take a short break here so I can clip the next videos. And when we come back, we're going to be taking a look at StarCraft 2 versus Lost Planet.
Oh, wow.
Lost Planet 3.